Girls don't go to college, at least in my day. That's how it was. A woman should be home to take care of a home and a husband. That was her role, because that's the way I was brought up.
Well,
You didn't tell me what you wanted for dinner.
Use your imagination, Come on.
Goodbye. I originally had wanted to be a singer. I had loved dancing, and my mother had stopped my lessons for some reason, something I did wrong, and she stopped my lessons. I did extremely well in that. Then I figured, well, get out of school, you meet a guy, and you get married, and he takes care of you for the rest of your life. Really, you don't really have too many goals at that age. You feel you have so many more years left to live, and it comes pretty quick. Come on, open the eyes. It's time to get up. Okay, kids, pancakes okay?
Yeah.
Sure?
Yeah.
Glenn, what kind of a lunch do you want tomorrow?
Peanut butter and jelly? Good. Lance gave me the wrong sandwich.
What do you mean, Lance? What did you give her?
I gave you cheese and nuts. Cheese or something.
She wanted liverwurst and cheese. And
Oh, no. And I got bologna.
And Glenn got the liverwurst. Right?
Yeah.
I graduated at 19 because I had to repeat 6 months. And I went to work for the telephone company, and that's where I met my husband. I went to work on February 14th, and 2 years later to the day, on February 14th, I left on a maternity leave with my oldest son. And then I had my daughter. And from 24 to about 35, before I had my third, it was very dull. There was nothing for me to do. I felt useless, and I felt just taking care of children. There had to be something more than this. And when they got to be like in the 6th grade and the 8th grade, I had nothing to do because there was nothing more.
What?
And then I had Lance, and then I had Deborah, and then I had Glenn. Come on. You're gonna eat all that?
Oh, my God. Milk?
Yeah.
This is gonna be fuller.
You're gonna burst, kid.
After we can eat it, I'll eat it.
At work, where I work now in Alexander's, in talking to people, I just happened to remark casually that I had always been interested in nursing, and somebody had said to me, well, why don't you go to school? And I laughed, because I figured, you know, at my age now, you'd stand out like a sore thumb with all the kids. And I figured, how would the brain react? You know, your brain, if it gets like your body wrinkled, believe me, the brain has got to deteriorate just as bad as the body. And I says, how would I work it in with the house, the kids? The kids get sick, or how would he accept it? He would think I was nuts. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. So one of the girls I was working with, she's 19, but she acts a lot older. She says, come on, I'll go down with you. And that's how I went down to the college. I went ahead and got my records. And I figured, well, if I got that far and I submitted money, I would follow through. It was just something I had to try. I really had to see if I could do it. And that remains to be seen yet.
What we'll deal with today is going to be the kind of learning that's very fundamental because it starts with the simplest kind of behavior. It's the smallest unit of behavior. It's organized at the level of the spinal cord, I hope we remember, and it deals with a simple connection between a stimulus and a response. Will indicate what kind of stimulus, what kind of response when we...
I felt like a fish out of water at first. When I walked into English, they thought I was the teacher. And they says, okay, now what are we going to do? I said, I'm not the teacher, I'm the student. And they just looked at me, and I didn't say anything, but it was very hectic. I felt very strange. I didn't want to talk out. When the professor would talk, I would just shut up. You know, and I figured, well, that was really insane. Why shut up? You know, that's what I'm here for. Then I found out you can be very verbal without being chastised or punished, like in high school.
The kind of behavior that's involved with this kind of learning makes up the very fabric. It's the basic texture of life. So you tell me, what do we mean when we talk about gut reactions?
When I know I'm late coming home and my husband's going to be annoyed, I have such a gut feeling of being sick that he's not going to believe it.
Right. But there's another sense in which you're using the term feeling now.
Knowing I was a lousy student in high school and in grammar school, I hated it with a passion. And I figured, what was I trying to prove? Was I trying to be just so they could look and say, isn't that fantastic? She's doing something wonderful. And I just didn't know if I could do the work. The reading, the comprehension, the retention, just going back to school, just the whole concept was so foreign to me that I really couldn't, I couldn't believe I was doing it. Until now, it's really starting to sink in now that I'm doing it. Where most people, when they have to go visit somebody in a hospital, they dread it. I don't. I find it very fascinating.
Dog and two babies.
I am a freshman here, first year of 26 years of not going to school, and I would really like to know what curriculum I have to pursue in order to become a nurse.
If you would take bio and science next semester,
Which would be
in the
spring, right?
then you would start nursing core courses, hospital courses, in the fall.
All right, now, Mrs. Fisher, do you feel that it's detrimental at my age, which is 44 now, and I've raised 5 children, I still have 3 home. Do you feel that the brain is still active enough to learn?
We had a student here who was a nursing student who, when she started, was 67 years old.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding.
You see, before you go to school, you peel a potato one way, but once you go to college, you do it with a theory. It shows that my brain can function beyond what it was doing at home, outside of changing a diaper, putting potatoes on, or watching a soap opera. In fact, since I'm going to school, the soap operas seem so nonsensical, really. They're really ridiculous. And it opens up different attitudes, and I find myself getting very independent, which I know he's not going to like. But you learn other words. There were words in the dictionary you never knew were there, and you can deal with things so differently. Bill?
Yeah?
Can you cut some of that meat? Usually I do that.
Is Willie eating here?
No, he's gone for the day. I'm lucky he'll take the dishes off the table. But the house must still run the same. There's no deviance. You can't change.
Yeah, every once in a while I realize I'll do something that I normally wouldn't have done, and I just did it. I don't know why, but you do adapt, I guess, yourself to changes. Things that I would never have touched before, I might do. Not to be nice or nothing, but just you kind of do some clean dishes sometimes, before I'd never do. I just would walk away, which most people do. Her time in between work and school, some days, there's not a minute's rest, so there's no time to sit down and cook a roast, I'll put it that way, So you wind up with a couple of mistakes when you're like maybe a roast dinner, but that's no problem. I figured there'd be problems to a point, but I felt it was the days, and he's not home days. So I just told him one day, I says, I went back to my high school, and I'm going back to, to get my records, and I'm going to school. He laughed, but he more or less knows when I say I'll do it. Yeah, I know before she even went to work with anything, if she got a virus or something, she'd be maybe laying on the couch for 3 or 4 days with, with a terrible fever of 99. And, and dying. Now, she can be dying. I say, stay home, or either don't go to college or don't go to work. Hey, you're sick. And go, throw the water on her face or whatever it is, and out the door, and she'll go. And the next day, she's recovered. Before, it was almost terminal illness with a 99 fever. When you get a little older, you know what you want, and you know what you have to do it, and you push yourself maybe to do it. How'd you like your den, Mother?
She's done 4.
You're kidding.
What?
Young or old?
In her early 30s.
What's that?
Oh.
About 32.
Is that old?
No, you're old.
That's a piece, huh?
By the time I get everybody's meal on the table and you cut up all the meat and you sit down to a cold meal, it's like 5 after 10 after 5. By this point, I've already gotten dressed, put on my makeup, and combed the hair, so what I have to do is run out the door, get in the car, run to work. Bye-bye, baby doll. Throw a kiss. I can't reach you. Throw me a kiss. Kiss. Okay, do all your homework, go to bed, okay?
I'll
You
go
stay
at
with
9:30.
No, you go when Daddy tells you, okay? I didn't go back to work until Linda was 11 years old and William was 13. I was very bored at home, and it was much against my husband's wishes, but I did it anyway. And the idea that I could bring home my own money, no matter how little it was me, I was doing it. It wasn't that I had to go to my husband and say, I need a pair of stockings, and if he felt you had enough stockings for this month, that's it. You only get 2 pairs and you can't have 3. Where is that, ladies' dresses?
They're both.
Yeah, 31.55 and 31.15, not 11.
Miss Stewart?
No.
Okay.
As far as getting an education, getting a degree, it's going to guarantee me, I hope, more money. It's going to fulfill something I've wanted to do that I couldn't do when I was younger. Unless the whole country just goes down the drain, you're still going to need a nurse.
I don't know. I sort of liked St. Brendan's because I was like always pulling stunts, always getting into trouble. But I loved it. I had a lot of good friends. My parents, first of all, never finished high school, okay? They grew up during the Depression, as I heard so many times in my life, and they wanted us to go to good schools, and they believed that the Catholic schools were the best because you were Catholic and because they were private. And my father worked his tail off in order to put us through these schools, and they were expensive. All 4 of us went through them. We were going in my last year of high school. I was about 19 and a half, 20 when we got engaged. And I tried breaking off with him about 2 months before the wedding, but he begged me on the IRT in front of a lot of people, so I went ahead with it. And we got married. We were married about 11 months when I got pregnant, and 9 months later, I had the baby, and a week later, we broke up. He just decided he wanted no responsibility for Danny at all, so then I was on my own. And after about a year, a girlfriend told me that she was on welfare, and she told me how she went about it, and that I was entitled to it. I had really never been on my own, like moved out of my parents' house and had my own apartment. And as independent as I thought I was, I found out how scary it could be. Like the first time you're on your own, I had a week-old baby. And that really frightened the life out of me. I wasn't, all that confidence, all that independence went right down the tubes because I wasn't sure. I said, how could I take care of me? When Danny was about, say about 8 or 9 months old, I don't know, I just decided that I couldn't stand it anymore. I couldn't stand the tension, the fear, and I had to do something about it, and I didn't like the idea that I wasn't in control of myself. So I just took the phone off the hook and told everybody to stay away from the house. And I just sat there, and each time I had a few minutes, I'd sit down and just work out everything that I thought was a problem. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, I found out that all the problems were created by me and by no one else, and that if I wanted to succeed, I could. And that's when it started. And I said, dummy, get back to school, get yourself going. I said, well, let me start slow, and I went back at night. There was an older crowd at night, people like my age and older, and I felt really good about being there. I felt good about getting out at night, talking to people, conversing, whatever, it was just really good to do it. It felt so stimulating. And then in February of '77, I went full-time back to school because my son made the daycare center, and he went to school and I went to school. Have a nice day, okay? You have a nice day. All right, now go with your home. Okay. You want to use pets?
Where's green? That's green, right. Stop for a moment and actually let your thoughts picture for you the conduct of somebody who has thoroughly understood.
My sister was an RN, and I saw the money she was making. And when I was going to go back, I said, well, it's a good career, get into it because you can make a lot of money. I mean, that was basically, I had to find a means of support that was a good means of support for my son. I wanted to give him a future. And when I got back, I was in the registrar's office, and I ended up talking to Professor Collins. And she just said to me, look, you know, what would you really, I said, if I can make the same amount of money, you know, in secretarial work, I'd rather go back, but only on a higher level, like an executive secretary or an administrative assistant. I like business more than I do, you know, medicine. So she said, well, go back. It would be much better to go back into secretarial science because that's what you really like, and that's what I did.
Now, instead of reading this back, just let me see the transcription done up in 5 minutes.
I think there are many, many very distinctive features of having an older woman return to class. They're not here because Mommy told them to come. They're here because they have goals that have to be met both practically and idealistically. They are very much interested in what they're doing. I find them delightful. I also find them a great catalyst for the class, because they lend a seriousness to the class where the younger students haven't reached that level yet, and it seems to permeate.
Would you like to take 170 words a minute? No.
I need financial aid, and as long as I'm living on welfare, because I live below a certain amount of money a year, I'm eligible for TAP and BEOG. One covers the cost of all the tuition that you tap, and then BEOG is extra money. It's a stipend given so that you can buy your books, car fare, lunch money, and they send it in the form of a check once every 6 months. But without it, you couldn't go to school. If my mother ever saw me cooking like this, she'd shoot me, because she's into, you know, every meal is a big production. And I'm not into that. I don't have the time for it. You know, maybe she did, but I don't. I think this is like the trivial part of my life, cooking, cleaning. It's important that it gets done, but it's not a big important thing for me to be super successful at.
You can this.
There you go.
Yeah, but I don't want you eating them without eating the rest of your food. Come on. Come on, eat. All right, you know what's on tonight, don't you?
Yeah.
What? Being a single parent takes up a lot of time because you're the only one around most of the time that the child, you know, your child has to play with, and mommy this and mommy that. And then I have school taking up a large part of my time. And when I come home from school, sometimes I just want to sit down and say to someone, here, it's your turn, and there is nobody to do that with. So it gets very frustrating sometimes, and I might take it out on him sometimes, like, Danny, please, let mommy relax for 5 minutes, you know? He's only 3 years old and he doesn't understand, and sometimes I'll get nasty with him. I don't mean to, but it's, you know, it's the hazards of being a single parent, I guess. Okay, now you be a good boy and go. Tight, tight. I kind of like my life the way it is. I am in love with someone right now. I feel very good about it. Right now, I don't want to relinquish the fact that this is my home. I am the head of this house. If something has to be done, I have to do it. I don't feel a necessity for marriage. What I could do now is go out and get a job for maybe about $150 a week. And it wouldn't be what I want. It wouldn't be enough for me to support my son. And an education is definitely required. A degree makes it much easier for you to achieve the kind of salary you want. And I want a better way of life for both of us.
I used to get their lunches. I used to make sure that their clothes were out. I did everything for them. They were rather spoiled. And of course now they do their own laundry, they get their own breakfast, so they get their own lunch. So in that sense, you know, they're more on their own now than they've ever been before.
Okay. later. I gotta get in there.
Did you guys walk the dog yet?
Okay, hurry up, Crow.
You're running late.
I left high school. I didn't finish. I left in my sophomore year. And I came to New York, and I went to work as a legal secretary. And then I got married, and I had the baby that I wanted to have. And my husband enlisted.
Bye.
Yeah. Have a good day. Listen, Daddy's gonna take you to karate tonight because Kelly and I have to go to beauty parlor, okay?
You're all right.
Okie doke.
When Cleve received his discharge, he came home and went to work for the New York City Police Department. And my next job came in 1971 as a dental assistant.
I think that considering where Cleve and I came from, you know, I mean, where we started out in life together and where we are now, it's not that bad. There was an incident that reversed my whole mode of thinking, I guess. And what had happened after Cleve had reached the status that he did in the police department, he was involved in a very violent shootout that left 2 men dead. And he was permanently disabled because of that. But I think that it was that it made me sit back and think, you know, about, gee, if anything had happened to him, where would the children and I be? Not so much on that particular day or month, but where would we be, say, 10 or 15 years, you know, if something like that had happened? Cleve was in the hospital. He was recovering from his wounds. And there was a dental, I don't know, a conference, I guess. I wouldn't call it a convention, but the state, I think it was the New York State Dental Association had a conference in New York City, and so I decided to go. Gloria Steinem happened to be the hostess of a workshop there, and I sat in on it. And she used a phrase. She said, quote, "Most women are one husband away from a welfare check," unquote. And I don't know, I didn't hear anything else she said after she said that, you see, because then too, I thought back again, you know, now what if something had happened to Cleve and so forth and so on. And I think that probably was the phrase that just clinched the whole thing. I have to do something. I went to night school, and I got my equivalency diploma. So that September, I entered Queensborough Community College.
We have 2 things to do today. First of all, I want to take care of Arlene's presentation, and secondly, I want to go into sales forecasting. So, Arlene, do you need a buyer, a volunteer? Okay, Amy, thank you for volunteering. Set the scene, tell them what you're going to do.
I worked as a legal secretary. So, and then I worked in a bank. And so, you know, business is just a natural course of events for me, I guess.
My organization is a management consulting and supply firm, and we help the dentist to establish a preventive dentistry program. And we have also developed a disclosing tablet to reinforce the program. And my position here in the office today is to sell this tablet to Amy, to reinforce.
We have a 2-year program where students take courses to matriculate towards an associate's degree. Some of them may feel that they want to terminate their education at that point and go out into the business world. Others can use those 2 years as the first 2 years of a baccalaureate degree.
Or the little cello pack, along with this instruction booklet.
Mature students are a help to the instructor. They're a help to the students. They add life experience. They tend to make the reading material more realistic with their own experiences. And a business is obviously looking for someone who's mature and who's responsible, and they tend to look more favorably upon older people. What did you think of the presentation, Joe?
She talked on the dentist level. She didn't talk on a salesman level. She's very skilled.
I chose a 2-year school because I just couldn't in my mind conceive of 4 years, you know, or more. So I said, well, I'll start with a 2-year school. I'll see how I do. I'll see how I adjust. I'll see if I can do well. If I do, then, you know, I'll make some plans to pursue a bachelor's degree. But my main worries at the time were, you know, would I be able to get through it? I feel now that I do have the ability to achieve the things that I would like to achieve. However, I do have a fear of math. I still haven't overcome that, but I think that I will eventually. After I graduate from Queensboro, I would like to get a job, but it has to be the kind of job that will permit me to go to school. I do want a job, and I do want to pursue my bachelor's degree. My husband was very hurt. That particular phrase, you know, most women are one husband away from a welfare check, that upset him. I wrote a paper on that, as a matter of fact. It was one of my better papers, and one of my best papers. And he didn't like it. He didn't like it at all. I got an A on the paper, but he didn't like it.
Hey, hon, how you doing?
All right, okay. How'd it go?
Okay, how's everything?
All right, okay. Yeah.
Get in here and start fixing something to eat.
Okay, all right, fine. I'm gonna finish this up and then I'll be right in.
Okay.
I was a New York City police officer. In 1973, I was involved in a shootout and I was left permanently disabled.
No, I didn't know if you were alive or not until Ma had told us.
After I found out that he was alive and he was all right, you know, I just couldn't worry about anything else because I just felt as if we were very fortunate. You know, the most important thing to me was that he was alive.
I think at that particular time, you know, I became insecure, you know, because you figure like about 1.5 years I spent primarily in bed, you know, and it just felt like the whole world was moving around me, you know, and I wasn't able to participate, you know. So when she started back to school, you know, I just felt like I felt threatened. I felt like everything that I had worked for, all the principles I had collected from my parents, being brought up, that I wasn't going to be the head of the house anymore. I felt like she was just going to take over, you know, and I was going to be left with the housework. In other words, we were going to switch identities almost.
Things that are done, say, on a regular basis, like the house cleaning and the preparing of the lunches, the preparing of the laundry, and things like that. Yes, that is a trade. That is definitely a trade-off in my situation. But I think that on the other end, I think that I'm more equipped to help them with their homework. And I think that when I have conferences with guidance counselors, I'm more equipped to handle them now than I was before. But I think that had I not experienced some of that myself, I would not have been able, you know, or equipped to help them.
You know, I think that they would like to have their mother here, and they know if I am left to the kitchen, they can just about calculate what they're going to have for dinner. You know, because I'm a non-cook, and I come right out the can.
Fucking face.
I'm just having a peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Cleve is looking forward to me graduating.
Right, that's right.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, I am. Yes, I am.
Yeah.
You know, but I have reached that particular stage now where I'd like to see her go as high as she can in her profession. You know, like I said before, I don't feel threatened anymore. I've grown out of that particular point now. I've grown out of that. I feel like whatever she does is definitely would be a positive towards the family.
I'm at a point now where I think I'm happier now than I've ever been before in my life. I'm looking
you know, I really have something to look forward to in terms of my own achievement. And at the same time, I hope that, you know, when I arrive there, that I'll have these 3 children and my husband. You know, all that is very much a part of, you know, where I want to go. I mean, I don't want my achievement to be at the expense of my family, in other words. You know, I want them to be, you know, be a part of it.
The thing I always wanted to say to other women, like, you know, if you have to be on welfare, fine. If you have to be divorced, fine. If you have to even be married and at home, fine. But don't let your life just end it there.
Or at least experience the feeling, you know, because once you get in there and you start experiencing it, you develop a feeling for it. And before long, you've just sort of worked right into the groove, and you're doing it right along with everyone else.
You don't know until you try, and I feel if a lot of women knew there are drawbacks, yes, and you're tired, and they all think, well, I don't want to have to tax my brain. I said, you can't explain to them. There's more to just staying home in a house. That you have to wake your brain up is what you're doing.